News Headquarters. The Poll of Polls with Arnab Goswami.
Good evening and welcome to the Poll of Polls show, and the big numbers are now going to come out on your screen. We have analyzed the ORG India poll along with the C Voter poll, the Nielsen poll, the Chanakya poll, and arrived at this big mean number which is on your screen. The mean poll of polls shows the NDA at 292 and the UPA at 101. 101 between a range, ladies and gentlemen, of 90 to 112, which means there is a very real possibility of the Congress party falling into double digits. 292 is in a range of 280 to 306, but keep in mind that this number out here, the 292 number, is buffered up with a 340 plus minus 14 seats, that sensational number coming from Chanakya. Where they don't vary as much is when it comes to vote share. Here's the aggregated vote share, a compilation of C Voter, ORG India, Nielsen and Chanakya. And in terms of vote share, the UPA aggregates 22.4%. Remember, that's UPA, not Congress alone. The NDA aggregates 36.09%. But what it essentially means is that purely in terms of the Congress party's vote share, there is a very real possibility that falling below 20% is a real possibility for the Congress party, which means huge, major existential crisis for the Congress party. We will now fire the graphics of the seat share. Seat share for the Congress and the BJP alone. The poll of polls shows the Congress party is in double digits. 82 seats is the figure that has been given to the Congress party. 250 is the aggregate number in the poll of polls for the BJP, which basically means that the BJP is well within striking distance. Again, I would like to add a small caveat. This includes this number of 250 for the BJP is buffered, while the amazing number of 291 plus minus 14, which I am told is higher than the BJP's internal estimate. But however, Chanakya says there's a real possibility of the BJP crossing 300 on its own. Now, the next graphic we'd like to put out is that of gains for the BJP. So from 2009 of 116, the BJP goes to an aggregate in the poll of polls of 250. That's a huge, massive gain of 134 seats. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the performance of Mr. Narendra Modi, if these polls are anything to go by. And remember, all these polls, broadly, I'd say all polls, including the highly conservative ORG India poll, conservative from the BJP point of view, are indicating one story. There is not one poll which says that the BJP will not come to close to 250. The C Voter poll, of course, says that the BJP individually, I think, could get about 248, 249, but they are broadly playing in that figure. The loss for the Congress, the big story, the headline that's been going on, the Congress party down from 206 to 82. Bare minimum, lowest ever so far was 114. Even Rahul Gandhi in his worst nightmare would not have believed that the Congress party can go to 82. But keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to go by Chanakya, Chanakya actually says the Congress party on its own could go down to 57. Now, that's therefore the big story that we are going to look at. I'd like to very warmly welcome, very warmly welcome into the studios Ashok Malik. Ashok Malik joins us back. Yashwant Deshmukh of C Voter. Thank you very much, Yashwant. Good to see you back in the Times Now studios. We've been missing you. Aarti Jairat, nice to see you. Nirja, Dilip Padgaonkar, Nirja Chaudhary, Dilip Padgaonkar, our political editor, Navika Kumar, joining us today. Navika, excited about what's going on in the poll of polls, or is it looking more and more predictable?
Well, now the excitement is who got it right, because all the numbers are there in the open space, in the public domain. So who got it right, that will be the thing. But once again, there's nothing like the real thing. The result day, 16th of May, 6 a.m. onwards. That's what all eyes will be on.
I spoke to Lalu Prasad today, and he said, oh my God, I don't agree with your numbers at all. I said, but others are giving you a fairly decent figure. He says, at the end of the day, all exit polls are going to be proven wrong. He was very super confident.
Congressman from Rajasthan said the same thing for our poll.
The congressman from Rajasthan said to us that they are delighted at the figures that we have shown them because some of them themselves don't believe that the party will do so well. So we take all polls with a barrel of salt.
She's going to raise the red flag whenever
she's wearing the red flag today. Well, you don't want to mess with Navika there. Sunil Alagh, thanks for joining us. Mr. Rajagopalan, Ajoy Da, and my friend Hartosh. Thank you very much indeed. Well, now, therefore, I'm going to look at the other detailed graphics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the overall numbers that we have here. This is the numbers of polls. 292 for the NDA, UPA 101, others 150. Does it vary very, very much between the four? Well, these three polls, the very conservative poll of 249 to 265 of ORG India, News Nation, Times Now poll yesterday, the News Nation, Times Now, ORG India poll predicts a range of 249 to 265. ABP News Nielsen says 281. C Voter says 289, and he says it in an upper range of 299, almost reaching 300 therefore. This is the one poll that really says that the NDA could go way out and almost touch the kind of levels that the Congress party reached in 1984. In terms of the story for the UPA, not very different. Only the ORG India News Nation poll gives the Congress party a chance. Remember, this is a UPA figure. This is not, ladies and gentlemen, it is not, and I'd like to repeat, a Congress party figure. The individual Congress party figure in that, and I'm sorry I forgot to welcome you there, Jay. That is the individual Congress party figure there. Would you like to come up here? Join me if you can, if you're not wired up. Yeah. Yes, perfect.
The individual Congress party figure varies from 105 to 120.
1 second. The individual Congress party figure should be coming on our screen right now. Okay, no, this is the NDA vote share. We'll go back to the previous graphics. The NDA vote share comes up by 12%. That's another story of resurgence. Let's wait for the next graphic. Okay. The Congress. This is the Congress party.
Now, this is actually the poll of polls. Come look at the News Nation ORG India poll. This is 119.
Right.
It's sort of, that is the mean, the best that the Congress party has had there.
No, but is this the upper end of the
This is the upper end. It's essentially 105 to 120.
So 105 to 120 is the poll. So when we put a figure of 119 out, on what basis do we say 119? It could vary anywhere in between? Or is this is this scientifically arrived at?
No, this is scientifically arrived at. The mean of the range has been taken when giving out.
While giving the 119 figure, all other polls put the Congress party below 100. The story is sealed as far as Chanakya is concerned. Is there a play for any of the other players to come in the government formation stakes? Well, I really don't think so, because they would have to be bolstered by a considerable performance plus complete unity on this side. If you total up these two numbers, whether it is News Nation, ORG, Times Now poll, C Voter, ABP Nielsen or today's Chanakya, they don't, others and Congress put together also, including potential allies and natural allies of the BJP, would rarely touch about 300. So the possibility of them coming together and getting 272 appears very, very dim.
Very weak. Very weak, importantly, within those 215 or 195. Look at that range. It's pretty narrow. It's 195 to 221. There's going to be a bunch of incompatibles. You know, you won't have the ADMK going with the DMK, the SP going with the BSP, the Mamta going with the left. So I think it's a little bit of a fool's paradise idea.
Let's look at the vote share of the NDA and the UPA. NDA first. Historically, the NDA vote share of 36%, how does it compare to the previous elections in which the NDA has done well? Does it come close to what Vajpayee achieved in 98, 99?
Not at all.
No, it doesn't.
It's a tad lower than that. That was 41% of the votes.
Right.
This time it's 36% of the votes. And we have 24% in 2009. Of this 24%, the BJP was 18%, Arnab.
Right.
You know, almost a substantial number here.
Okay.
There it's 36% and the BJP climbs to about 28%.
Okay, and if you're watching this, one point to remember here, that in terms of vote share for the NDA, there is very little variation between ORG India, News Nation, ORG India, News Nation Times Now, C Voter, Nielsen,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
however, even I don't have the
There is
vote
a
share for Chanakya.
Chanakya doesn't have a...
You want to have the breakup of how the different polls have plotted the vote share? Okay, so you want to see the poll of polls vote share graph once again?
Yeah, the poll of
That
polls
would be
vote share.
interesting.
Yes.
Okay. I think I don't have the graphic right now. C Voter puts 38% as the NDA figure, vote share, projecting 289 to 289 is the mean on that average of 279 to 290.
Right, 38%.
ORG India says 34.28. Nielsen says 36. I do not have the vote share of Chanakya. The average mean arrived at therefore is
36.09. Yeah.
36.09. So it's actually closer to 36 than 37.
37, right.
Fine.
Yeah.
As
Yeah, these are the...
and this is the way the seats are arrived at.
the seats are arriving.
So broadly, just to tell you the big story right now, in terms of vote share for the NDA varies between 34 and 38, 39% for all these players. There is a wide gap. The UPA, in terms of vote share, I'd like to pull up the vote share of the UPA, varies in a range between 19 and 23, 24%, 25% for C Voter. C Voter says 25%, 19% says ORG India. In fact, ORG India is predicting lesser vote share than C Voter, while giving a significantly higher number of seats to the Congress party. So the News Nation ORG poll is actually more conservative in terms of vote share for the Congress UPA. Nielsen gives 23%. The average vote share of the UPA is at about 22.4%. Rounded off, we are putting 22%. There's a gap of 15% that they have lost since 2009, which is a significant and massive loss. And this loss has been largely held together. I mean, this loss is largely because of the losses of the Congress party.
Yeah.
Right?
The Congress is projected to decline from 28 to 19.
Okay, we are going to go to the game changer states in some time. I'd like to open this up. Now, there are a few talking points. Yashwant, my first question to you is, you've given a range, and everyone's given a broad range, right? Everyone's looking at that range of 250 to about 290, 295 that you see. Chanakya is the only standout poll that really says 340. So it's between Chanakya on one side and the ORG India poll on the other. How are you reading the broad number, and how do you think these numbers vary within that limited frame of 250 to 330?
There are three major agencies doing media polls for the last 15-20 years and regularly. CSDS, Nielsen and C Voter. If you pick up these three agencies, their numbers are remarkably close, within plus minus 5 seats of each other, and plus minus 1% of vote share between each other. Remarkably close. There are two outliers. One is Chanakya on the one side, another is ORG, between 100 seats difference between them, almost 100. So if you take an average of ORG and Chanakya, it will come down to what these three agencies are saying. Even if you take the average of these two outliers.
That's your, what, that's,
you know,
that's,
so,
you are saying
so
that
what I'm
three
trying
are,
to say,
no, my
that the
point
figures...
is that, can you explain to me mathematically, just simple question here is, that...
These are saying, even if you take the average of these two outliers.
That's your, what, that's,
you know,
that's,
so,
you are saying
so
that
what I'm
three
trying
are,
to say,
no, my
that the
point
figures...
is that, can you explain to me mathematically, just simple question here is, that because the vote share figures, national vote share figures for all these polls, as you will agree, are broadly in a very close range.
The
results vary quite significantly.
No, they are not. I tell you why the results vary significantly. For example, the ORG poll in Rajasthan says the margin between the Congress and the BJP is hardly about 3%. In my poll, the margin is 23%. This is as huge as it can be, Arnav. So they are not same. They are overall, because one vote share in this state and one their vote share in that state get compensated somewhere. Their average might be coming to it that. But if you are comparing the vote share, I would seriously request you to compare the vote share of each and every state. And which is where you will figure out that the gap between CSDS, C Voter and Nielsen is hardly within very much plus minus 3% of their margin of error, within that error. But these two polls at the state level have very eccentric vote share changes. So one of them has to go wrong big time among these two. rest of these three numbers, the average would be pretty much consistent as far as the national, as far as the state vote share.
Mr. Padgaonkar.
Given the divergence in these various opinion polls,
Yes.
I'd like to quote Omar Abdullah's tweet this morning, have all these agencies been covering the same election?
Well, I'll tell you.
The extent of the divergence between what ORG India has done and what Chanakya has done,
Yeah.
the diversity is such that you need to, have a greater explanation as to why this divergence has come about.
Yeah.
You know, one point. Sorry.
Yeah, let's begin the
Yeah,
chat.
one point that I want to raise is that the ORG gentleman, I forget his name, who
ORG
was here,
India.
ORG India gentleman, he had said that he has focused on areas which generally switch votes. I mean, switch that segments in each area which are more likely to be volatile in voting. Whereas I think all the other agencies have taken a cross-section of all. Now, if you focus only in areas which are the volatile voters, you are likely to come across and have a result which can go one way or the other.
Right.
This is the only explanation, because they said in the beginning, because the standard people were excluded.
I'm just slightly curious about ORG India's 34%, because as far as I remember correctly yesterday, Uttar Pradesh was something like 25.5 or 26%. Yeah, 26%. And which is a huge state, and so therefore would comprise a very large. And in Rajasthan, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh also, it was well below 30% the BJP vote. So I'm just surprised, how did their final tally come
Because
to...
they've given a higher number in Assam, there's a higher number in Karnataka.
But it would compensate for 26%.
And by the way, in UP, the Nielsen vote share for the BJP is 36, CSDS is 37, C-voter is 37.
Yeah, ORG India is 32, sort of 26. Although
So there
they've
is a
given
gap of
52 seats.
10%.
Although they've given 52 seats on 26.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that I'm just curious about it, that's all. I mean, these are all
Can I ask you a
statistical...
question?
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask a question? Have all these polls taken into account the 40-odd constituencies which went to the polls yesterday? And I believe there are 18 of them which were in UP.
They were projected.
So I cannot comment of what others do the way they do. As far as the C-voter is concerned, ours is a pretty much data collection in a way real time, that whenever an interview is conducted in the field, the data is immediately picked up by our central research team through our call center from talking to that researcher in the field. So our data is pretty much at till 4 o'clock in sync with whatsoever the data we had collected last evening.
Right.
Then we had come up with an update at 9 o'clock for the complete data.
Percentage for rigging and money paying also, no? How do you bring that one?
That is something
4 o'clock they would have rigged the behavior.
Let me say one thing about exit polling.
Into account.
Let me say one thing about exit polling. Yashwant will not disagree. In retrospect, the beauty about exit polling is, in retrospect, every exit poll is correct in their own way. They have their own rationalizations, they have their own way of reaching out to the numbers. But this time what I find very interesting is that there is no one who's bucking the trend overall. There is nobody who's saying that Modi is not going to form the government. Within that range, some are saying, well, if you go by the ORG India poll, he'll need the help of some people to form the government. If you go by the Chanakya poll, well, he's not going to need anyone. And there are, of course, variations within the states. But the broad national story is more or less, as you all agree, in the same direction. So let's remain focused on that, because, I don't want to get into you're right on Rajasthan, I'm right on UP, and etc., etc. Then we'll go into a fair amount of minutiae.
One question. Yashant, I wanted to ask you something. That over a period of time, over 2 elections, we've seen that exit polls all tend to be biased in the same direction. Has any correction been made for it this time, or that is just a coincidence that it has happened so?
2004 and 2009, I mean, it's a very valid question. And please don't forget that there were 100 assembly elections in the 15 years period between these 2 elections as well.
Sure.
So you have seen me work on not only 2004, 2009, but various others where we have been almost 95% correct, in that way. 2004 was an outlier election, Hartosh, because That was the one election when we were doing exit poll for Star News. We predicted 36% for the NDA, it got 36%. We predicted 35% for the UPA, it got 35%. But it was one of those rare odd elections where the party getting lesser votes got higher number of seats. You know, it is the first past the post system which defies the logic some of the time.
He's right there. You know, the Westminster model. And I remember there was one occasion, I think Yashwant remembers, which was right on the eve of the December 8th election. And Yashwant and I were in the studio in a different setting. We were talking about it. And then Yogendra Yadav viciously went after Yashwant saying, I don't know, you declare your methodology, etc. You remember, Yashwant, what I said there?
I absolutely remember.
I always, therefore, stand behind the fact that, you know, to attach motive is very easy. To do what exit pollsters do is very difficult. So I don't want to trivialize this process. But anyway, none of us are statisticians. We can all try and match our wits with Yashwant on samples and surveys. But I'm not going to do that. I just want to